How did I... When did I...
He was here. He was definitely here. This wasn't a dream.
You don't remember?
Hesitant whisper in the back of his mind, just loud enough to hear. Edgar looked around himself, looked to see if something else had happened that would explain his lapse, explain where he was and how he got here. The route to his mind blocked. Information flow slowed in defense, an effort to easily assimilate what had happened. It didn't hit him all at once. It couldn't. Trickles of information. The gradual logical realization with no emotion attached just yet. Minor details rather than the entire scene. Forest for the trees. The enormity lost as he licked his lips. Vague mint taste in his mouth. Shaking. A kind of tremble that started low and worked its way through his chest and up to his hands. His body showed the signs long before he could name the emotion. Fear.
Oh my god. Oh my god, how did I get here? I don't remember. You don't remember anything? No!
Edgar buried his hands in his hair, rested his head on the steering wheel. The leather felt warm. The engine was still on. The radio was silent. Oh God. Pieces coming together now. More information working through. There was a moment of hesitation. Some mumbling in the back of his mind. Then Sviridov spoke slowly.
This is not a good sign, my boy. I must have done this, but I can't remember anything. I can't remember anything at all. It's all... There isn't even a blur. There's nothing, no time, nothing. It's like something edited my life. It's like someone spliced two scenes together and... God, nothing. Not even a clue, not a single scrap of anything. I can't remember anything. I should remember something. What happened? What's happening to me?
Calm down. You're not making sense.
A moment of thought.
Have you checked the car? Maybe there's a clue of some kind.
Edgar lifted his head. He caught something black at the edge of his vision and looked down. His trench coat. He was wearing his trench coat. Blinding, sudden panic. Too quick to defend against and too strong to resist. He scratched his arm and knocked his glasses askew as he tore the coat from his body and threw it against the back seat. He sat and breathed hard. The sudden onset of cold raising the hair on his arms. Shivered, hoped it was from the cold. He wrapped his hands around his shoulders. He wasn't wearing his seatbelt. He felt something. A kind of vibration and trembling, and he felt it, could feel it in his throat. He listened. Found he was making a strange keening whine and forced himself to stop.
Calm down.
Sviridov sounded thoughtful.
This isn't good for you. What happened? What happened?
Reality kicking in, and he wasn't prepared for this.
Did I black out? Oh God, did someone take me here? What happened? I can't remember. I can't remember anything. I can't...
Calm down. What's the last thing you remember?
He looked out of the window and saw it was drizzling. Still dark outside. How long had it been? Wait. The car was still on. Turn the key. As the engine shut off, he realized it wasn't as silent as he thought. This new level of quiet was even worse.
I was talking to you. I was talking to you about something.
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 It was hard to think. He couldn't shake this feeling that he had lost something. That he had lost far more than just time. Some kind of strange violation. A betrayal of his mind and body and memories. The blank spot in his mind where that time should have been became a fertile ground for everything that might have been. Growing panic.
Arguing about something.
Yes, that's right.
Scriabin sounded very calm. Perfect contrast.
That's right. An argument.
It was 'cause...
Struggled to think of anything. Anything other than what could have happened while he wasn't here.
It was because you were being nice to me. And I didn't know why. I can't remember any of the details. Everything gets fuzzy, and then I'm here, and I can't...
It won't do you any good to think about it now.
Scriabin said in a matter-of-fact way, and Edgar felt silent.
Whatever it was that just happened can't be undone, necessarily. The important thing now is to assess the damage. Later on, we can determine what caused this blackout, and whether or not it can be avoided.
Edgar pulled his hands from his shoulders, ran them down his chest and across his shirt.
What should I check for? Oh God. Anything could have happened to me. Anything. Oh God. Was I wearing this? I was wearing this before, wasn't I? Oh God, what if...
He put his hands in his pockets, felt his keys and his wallet. He ran a hand across his face and felt it was smooth.
Did I shave when I woke up?
I don't think whoever did this would have gone so far.
Scriabin sighed.
Do you remember anything?
A pause, then a soft laugh.
Me? Are you asking me?
Yes.
Edgar was. Yes. He was too frightened to be offended or annoyed at his tone.
Do you?
Edgar checked himself over again as Scriabin thought. When he ran his hands across his lower rib cage, he felt a soft kind of ache in response to his touch. He lifted his shirt, looked a bit closer and saw that a bruise spread its way down his right side, ran down to his hip. A moment of hyperventilation, shaking hands, then necessary distraction to prevent further emotional damage. He pulled out his wallet and ignored the lingering ache, checked through its contents, struggled to focus on something mundane. Couldn't remember how much he had in there originally, but he didn't carry a lot of cash with him anyway. All of his credit cards and identifications still in place.
No, I don't think I do.
Scriabin sounded amused.
Unfortunate.
I can't believe this happened to me. Why here? Why now? Why me?
Questions you've asked before, but you've never gotten an answer.
Oh God. Anything could have happened. I could have been... I'd rather have a blur than just nothing, than just a sudden jump.
Stop thinking about it for now. It won't help you. You need to calm down.
How can I calm down? How can I?
You know as well as I do how to calm down.
Scream inside.
Just think about something else. That's your specialty.
Edgar turned and looked at the church. Worn red stone with a dead lawn, although one could see where someone had gamely tried to cultivate some flowers without much success. There were 2 small spotlights that illuminated the carved wooden doorway, and inside he could see the faint glow of candles through coloured glass. He wasn't in a position to make out the sign at the moment, although he was sure it was nearby. Stared.
Maybe I should... Maybe I drove here for a reason.
If you did drive here.
Oh, God.
He shut his eyes at the thought. Focus on something else. Anything else. He felt in the back seat for his coat. He didn't want to wander in the rain without some kind of protection, and his coat was all he had.
I can't believe this is happening.
Yes. This isn't good, is it?
I can't think about this now. I need...
He opened the car door, stepped out, and threw on his coat with one smooth movement. He shut the door, then quickly looked over his car. He didn't see any new damage.
What do you need?
It was hard to say, especially to him. He locked the doors and made his way towards the church.
Because if there's one thing you don't need, it's this.
The inside of the church was not much warmer than the outside. There were candles lit, although from the distance and with his broken glasses, Edgar couldn't tell if they were real or artificial. A bowl of holy water near the door, pews extending to the pulpit, all empty. He let the door close behind him, hopefully leaving the issue of his lost time outside. The dull noise echoed across the vaulted ceilings, emphasized the silence that came after. No sense of peace.
No, I wouldn't imagine so. Not anymore, I don't think.
No,
Edgar thought. He took a few determined steps down between the pews, glanced at the stained glass windows on either side of him. He felt his fingers twitch.
No, not this time.
No to what, exactly?
I'm not going to argue about this with you. Not here, and not now. I need this.
There. He said it. He took a seat and shook himself off.
You don't need this.
Yes, I do!
A moment to compose himself.
This is the one thing I won't let you touch.
You can't stop me.
Yes, I can.
When have you ever?
A pause, and Edgar didn't respond.
Listen, I'm going to be somewhat kind. I'm going to give you a warning.
What? A warning against what?
Remember the last time I did this to you? You used to be a bit more resilient back in the day, but that's apparently not the case now. Last time I did this, the last time that I told you the truth, You handled it less than admirably.
He wanted to say that that wasn't the truth. Scriabin continued.
So I'm going to give you a warning this time. I am going to cut your umbilical cord.
My what?
I'm going to pull you out of your pathetic womb, and I'm going to make you live.
What are you talking about?
I'm going to deconstruct everything you believe in. I will bring these exalted ceilings down around you and show you what you've locked yourself away from for so long. Tear apart the bindings you so willingly entrap yourself in.
The hell you are.
I'm going to do it, and you'll thank me for it later. But I want you to be prepared. I would rather not have you pass out halfway through this, our little session together. That would be far from productive.
You can't do this to me. You can't do that!
Spend your time however you like.
Edgar got the impression that Scriabin shrugged somehow.
I'm giving you a warning, not a choice.
You can't take this away from me!
Edgar shouted in his mind, and felt his nails digging into his palms.
This is all I have!
No, it isn't.
He sounded bored.
You can spend your time arguing with me if you like. Maybe we can consider it a warm-up.
No, you're not touching this!
Empty threats.
Edgar struggled to think of any time Scriabin had been afraid. Anything that he could exploit, could use to back himself up.
I can rewrite my memories again. I could do that. I will do that if you don't leave me alone.
Ha! You can try. You know why that worked before? For one thing, I wasn't prepared. And for the second, you were truly motivated. You were completely delusional. I'm afraid you can't turn that on and off at will. Besides, what memory will you edit me into anyway? You already did that with your previous tantrum. You threw me into practically everything, regardless of relevance.
I will, I swear to God.
Okay, I'm tired of waiting.
He heard a snap.
It's time. Are you ready?
You're not doing this.
God has turned his back on you, Edgar.
No, he hasn't!
He wasn't going to let this happen. Not without a fight. Scriabin sighed in a way that was becoming increasingly familiar.
I can see what this will be like. Doesn't make that much of a difference. It's not even something we're unfamiliar with, is it? At any rate, where was I? Yes. God has turned his back on you, Edgar, and you have turned your back on him.
I have not!
Felt the urge to shout that, to hear it reverberate from the high empty ceilings, but controlled himself.
The minor details I'll bring up later, but let's focus on the most damning evidence first. Your time in the afterlife.
Complete and total shock. A real and tangible loss of body heat, he was sure, and his mouth fell open.
You're not.
From what I can gather, you met God, didn't you? And Satan as well, and they didn't exactly match up with your current belief system, did they?
You can't. You said we'd work on it together. You said you'd leave it alone.
His mental voice was getting louder and it kept breaking.
You said you didn't know. You said you wouldn't hurt me. You said you wouldn't touch that.
Oh, Edgar, you really are so naive.
He had worked so hard. He He had worked so hard to keep this from him, to keep this memory a secret for this exact reason. And then he had been tricked. He had fallen for it. He had fallen for false sincerity. He had grasped for that scrap of outright affection and a deep sense of betrayal. Pain manifesting in his hands, shaking uncontrollably, his throat tightening, and underneath it all, that disappointment and disgust he felt for himself for having been so gullible, for having been used so easily.
Remember, my boy.
Scriban's voice was soft, mimicked the tender tone he had used before.
This is for your benefit.
I can't. I can't believe you're doing this.
Couldn't process information. Couldn't block. That moment of vulnerability, when he foolishly gave away his trust, gave away responsibility, repeating and repeating and repeating.
I can't believe you're doing this to me. I can't believe.
You may think I'm hurting you.
That same soothing voice. He felt his skin heating, prickling underneath the bandage beneath his eye. His eyes stung and something twitching somewhere. Maybe his hands, or maybe he was just shaking.
It may seem that way now. In the end, you'll thank me. You need me, Edgar. You need me to do this for you. Stop.
He couldn't logically fight. Not now. He hadn't been prepared for this, and that in itself hurt just as much.
Stop. Don't do this to me.
Now, if this information is true, which it probably is, that means that your soul is no longer in God's hands.
Stop. Stop, please. How could you hurt me like this?
You're in the hands of something else now. Some kind of strange system, although they didn't elaborate. You are now outside their jurisdiction. Satan mentioned it. That he, and as one can extrapolate, God, have no power over that system's decisions. You are outside now, Edgar. Outside the realm of gods and devils. You are a free entity, untouchable by all others.
Edgar crossed his arms on the back of the pew in front of him, pressed his forehead against the folds of his coat so hard he could feel the ache.
How could you do this to me? How can you do this to me?
And he wasn't listening, and he kept talking, and oh God, why won't he listen?
God cannot touch you. The devil cannot touch you. God doesn't care either, Edgar, as he showed you when you met him. He does not care about you. I somehow doubt he ever will. And I doubt that he would care at all if you ended up right back in hell, like Satan suggested you would.
Shivering.
If you are damned already, which at this point is fairly likely, I would say, judging from your current behavior, then there's no reason to continue with this charade. There's no reason to torture yourself like this anymore. There's no reason to play the martyr, drive more nails into your willing hands. You don't have to hurt yourself over your behavior anymore. Restraint without motive is pointless. You have no motivation to be good, Edgar, as there is no longer any kind of reward. And Lord knows, there is no such thing as true altruism.
Too hurt by the lie. Too deeply hurt by the flagrant betrayal of his trust to muster any kind of argument, to even revert to his most oft-used defense of denial. Too hurt to do anything more than beg for mercy.
Please. Please don't.
But you may be wondering about the support that your God gives you. What could be the harm in that? Perhaps heaven is not your primary motivation, but instead the thought of unconditional love from some source beyond your control. The thought of someone who is always there, will always listen, and will always support you invisibly. The greatest placebo of them all.
Energy expended, now shivering in waves.
And that is one of my primary reasons for doing this. You're depending on something else, something unreliable and in the end, destructive, to support you when you should be depending on yourself. You should depend on your own strength, your own ability. You should find your strength in yourself, in your character, not in a pleasant fantasy.
I'm not strong. I'm not strong enough.
Hoped the admission of weakness could stop this, that offering his throat would stop the attack, grant the dominance that he was sure must have motivated him. Heard his breath hissing past his teeth, felt the brief warmth through the fabric of his coat.
Yes, you are, Edgar.
Authority in his voice that he could not question.
You just don't want to admit it. You've always had the capacity for change. You've always had that power. You've always been the master of your own fate. You have the ability to make decisions. You have the ability to take charge, to control what's happening to you. You've always had that power, but you've never used it. You've never believed in yourself to see it. You've never had the strength to find it. You've always fallen back on your support lines. You've always shifted responsibility for yourself, for your fate, for your happiness, for every stupid little thing to your God. That way, it's out of your hands. That way you're safe. That's not healthy, Edgar. You're capable of so much more.
I trusted you.
You did. And look where it's gotten you. You shifted responsibility for yourself onto me. And look where it's gotten you.
His breath caught, trapped in his throat. A short gasp, and he tried to stop what he knew was coming.
How could you do this to me?
Do you think this is a bad thing? No. Silly question. I can feel your pain quite acutely. You think that shifting that responsibility to me was a bad thing. There's a difference between me and your God, Edgar. There's a big difference. I am here to motivate you, and I will motivate you to change. I will direct you, influence you, and force you to find that power. I will find your strength. I will find the power you used to have, and I will show you how to use it. I will give you your life back. I won't sit back and let you lead a life of lies, like your god was so fond of doing. I will give you strength, the strength you need to fight the system and stop the decay you know is coming.
Mental voice growing weak and high.
I don't want to depend on you.
Well, good. You shouldn't want to depend on anyone except yourself. You are the only constant in this world, Edgar. This entire scenario, it's always been under your control. You are the only one who can save yourself. There is no time for lies and false redemption. You don't need God, Edgar. You never did. You need yourself.
Pulling back further, trying to get away from the thing that burned and pain. Get somewhere safe.
I do need him. I can't do this alone.
You won't do this alone. Remember, I'm here. I said I'd be here, and I will be. I will be your greatest asset in the challenge to come, Edgar. I will be your greatest gift, your weapon against whatever fate is in store for you. I won't let you sit back and take it anymore. I won't let you give your life away to other people. I will be your change, your catalyst. I will take everything wrong about you and make it right. I will work and fight and push you until you win. Until you break free of this system and you can live your own life again. I will work to preserve your sanity. I will give you the mental power, the fortitude, the motivation to stand against the coming storm, because I will strip away the lies, the false shields and the defense mechanisms that stand in your way. Your God can't do that. He wouldn't want you to do that. He's content to stand idly by, to let you go. What kind of loving and merciful God would let this happen to a child so devoted, so dedicated to him? What kind of God would leave you to some other system's machinations without a second glance, as you know your God has done? He doesn't care about you. He doesn't love you. These are facts, Edgar, not beliefs. You know this is true.
Tiny words written in a child's hand, scribbled with crayon on a piece of construction paper and slid under a door. Reassurance. Reassurance. Everything will be okay. Everything will be okay as long as
he does.
God doesn't care about you, Edgar.
Stop hurting me.
You're nothing to him.
Stop hurting me.
You're insignificant. A minor cog.
I can't make it stop.
That fell out of place. You're part of something bigger now.
I don't want this to be true.
Something outside his control.
Please tell me you're lying, Ed.
Your God can't save you now.
Make me stop believing you.
Finality. Reality. The door slammed and caught on a faint scream from far away, long ago.
Your God can't save you now.
A choked sob, and his entire body tensed and tried to erase it, tried to stop breathing. Tears soaked into his jacket, his eyes clenched shut and willing with every fibre of his being for it to stop. An immediate subconscious mental tirade that demanded that the tears stop, that he find some other method of dealing with it than something so childish, useless, and weak. Stop crying right now. It won't help you. What kind of man are you? Stop that immediately. Scriabin was quiet for a few seconds as Edgar struggled to get himself back under control, furiously erasing. He hovered on the edge. His breathing was shaky and came in gasps, and his eyes still watered. Under control by only a few threads. A few threads of doubt and hope were all he had. There was no cruelty in his voice.
The only one who can save you now is yourself. Don't you understand? It's up to you, Edgar. You can't depend on anyone else anymore. God won't help you. You're out of his hands. You've been cut away from him, forever removed from his grace and shining light, or whatever it was.
Snip.
He has abandoned you. He has left you for dead. Nothing you say, no prayers and no pleading, no begging for forgiveness will bring him back. Nothing, no one will take this cup away from you, Edgar. It's up to you. It's up to you to overcome this. He will not save you.
Snip. Snip.
God has abandoned you.
God, no, please.
You were alone.
Oh, God, no.
Completely alone.
A loud sob tore through his throat, echoed in an empty church. Reality hit hard, and it hit without mercy. Emptiness that fueled tears and made it hard to breathe.
He is gone.
Scriabin said softly.
He will not come back for you. You know this. You know this is true. He has abandoned you.
Racking pain. Emotional that tore its way through his stomach, his chest, ripped through his throat, and he struggled not to make too much noise, not to disturb anyone else who may be here. He kept his eyes shut, his face hidden. Could feel the welling up of deep pain, of deep emotional pain that never found a previous voice that worked through his body so slowly, came from his mouth so loudly. Not sobs, but loud whines, half screams caught and cut short. Edgar wept. He wasn't sure for how long. It was the first time that he could really remember ever doing something like this, ever crying this hard over anything, over everything. He had no frame of reference. Sometimes the motion, the action took precedence over his thoughts, and he wasn't sure why he was sobbing so hard, just that he was doing it and he couldn't stop. He just couldn't stop. Every time he took a deep breath, struggled to find those defenses that had protected him against this for so long, he touched that same kind of pain. The uprooting of something he had used so long as support, as a way to bury everything, as a way to block reality, as a way to make his life tolerable and give it meaning through something other than other people. He would touch that wound, that deep and fresh wound, and pain would shoot through him again. The memories of hell and what he'd seen and the thought of what would happen to him and the deep fear and knowledge that he was right. Scriabin was right. He had no one to turn to now. no one except himself. And within that wound, he found something that had been bleeding. Something infected and deep and painful. Something that had worked its way into his thoughts for so long that it was barely noticed. The 1,000 capillaries that never warranted full attention. Infection deep from a time he couldn't remember, from a wound he never healed and never tried to heal, simply ignored and hoped it would go away. Within that, within all of the pain of having his support stripped away, he found his true fear. The real fear that made him resort to all of this distance and the relationships and the reliance on others, the reliance on others for his decisions and his life, and he was scared. He was scared that he couldn't do it. He didn't know how. He didn't know what he was doing. He didn't think he could do it. He didn't have the confidence. He didn't have the knowledge, and he didn't have the ability, and he was going to die. He was going to lose. He was going to lose everything. He needed this. He needed someone to take this responsibility off his hands and tell him what to do, because he'd end up ruining it. He'd just end up ruining it and burning his hands, and he couldn't do this alone. He could never do this alone. He always had someone in the back of his mind that he could turn to, that could make the laws that he could follow because he couldn't decide for himself, too petrified of making the wrong decision, too afraid to ruin something he didn't even have, so he gave it to someone else. He gave everything to God and kept the emptiness and called it his life. And when he touched that part of him, he recoiled so violently that it was blotted out immediately, wiped from his memory through countless years of practice, and resigned back into that dull ache. That ache that gave this new wound, this missing part of him, the potential to hurt as much as it did. He touched it once, had a moment of self-revelation that terrified him so completely that his entire body shook with the force of his next cry of pain. That the shudder of his body only encouraged him, only encouraged more tears and hatred at those tears and memories gone. Pulled and found the roots ran too deep and now never touching that again. There was more present pain, something more real and powerful, and that was enough to focus on. Nothing from Scriabin. He didn't hear it, didn't catch that momentary blip on the radar as Edgar approached the truth, then vengefully scribbled over it, crossed it out and turned and killed and thrust it deep, pushed it away so strongly that he wasn't aware he did it himself, and there was enough pain going on at the moment that it'd be hard to differentiate one spike from the other. A good thing that, at least. A good thing that this came and went as quickly as it did. A wound too early to open, too painful to touch. Not now. Gulping breaths, pain pressing into the bridge of his nose, entire body shaking in fits. The lenses of his glasses caught tears, kept them even when eventually the sobbing quieted and he could feel something approaching control. It took some time for control to find a lasting hold. At first, he would feel as though the storm was over, but then a stray thought would send him back into what had happened, into what the future held for him and him alone, and control would vanish again. Several tries and failed attempts before he really began to feel as though he could at least stop crying. And the easiest way to prevent failure was to consider what had caused that failure. And that was feeling. So control sunk in and feeling faded, a trade-off that he was more than happy to make. His lapse of control, the realization of what he had been doing, prompted a flood of something like shame at having resorted to something so useless and self-indulgent, at having lost control so completely. Emotion that was quick, intense, instinctual, and then forgotten. When he finally leaned back against the wood of the pew, he felt deeply, deeply empty inside. More so than he ever had in his life. His emotions typically ran a minor gamut, small fluctuations barely noticed, and he thought at those times that maybe he felt empty because he didn't feel much. But this was different. He didn't feel much then, but now, he felt absolutely nothing. He stared at his coat, shook the tears from his glasses, took a few deep breaths. His entire body still shaking, shivered, and he felt weak. Nothing except physical sensation coming through anymore. Nothing logical connected with anything resembling real emotions. Empty inside. Everything gone.
You won't be entirely alone,
Scriabin said softly. And it was that same gentle voice as before. That faint, almost musical tinge. He sounded deeply sincere, as if he really did want to soothe the hurt. Comfort him somehow. If Edgar cared at this point, he would have been suspicious. He didn't care.
Remember, you won't be entirely alone. I'll be here with you.
Edgar didn't want to say anything. He didn't want to do anything. Wanted to sit here and never move again for the rest of his life.
I can support you. I can teach you. I can show you how to take control. I'll figure out how to beat this, and we will beat this. You can depend on me, because I'll be here. I will work for you. I will work to help you through this. I will find what's right for you, not for your God. I will contribute in ways that are tangible, that will have solutions. I can do everything your God can't. I won't abandon you. Believe in me. Believe in me.
Nothing. He could hear his words. He was understanding them. But he felt nothing in response. He felt absolutely nothing. He could see the polished wood and tiny pencil, and the black book with its golden embossed letters and the crucifix that marked its vocation in front of him. He could see and hear, but nothing. Nothing worked through. He didn't want to feel anything. He wanted to stay like this, stay comfortably numb. Wanted to stay here forever, just drift away. Never feel, never think, never go back to his life, face the future. Never wanted to feel again. Scriabin tried to force a carefree tone into his voice without success.
Come now. That wasn't so bad, was it? It didn't take as long as I thought, and it wasn't as difficult as I thought it would be. And you stayed with me through the whole ordeal. And you even expressed some emotion, some real emotion for once. I'd say we've made progress, wouldn't you?
Nothing. Like Scriabin was talking to someone else. Didn't move.
You have nothing to fear now.
Still talking softly, although he abandoned the pretense of nonchalance.
Ethics have no meaning to you. There is nothing to stop you. There is nothing that can stop you now. A whole new world is open for you, is open to you. You've unlocked your real potential now. You can become who you were meant to be. You can become strong. You can become assertive. You can become more than what you had resigned yourself to before. Now you can beat this. Now you can find your real strength.
Didn't want to think anymore. Tired. So tired. Wanted to stop existing. Not die necessarily, but stop existing. Didn't want to deal with this. Didn't want to deal with his life, his decisions, what the future held for him, what he knew would be in store. A heaven for me and a hell for you. Oh God.
Come on, get up.
Gentle, nudging words. Maybe Scriabin had enough tact to know that now was not the time for sarcasm.
Let's get out of here. I think it stopped raining.
I don't want this to happen to me. I don't want this.
Well, neither did I. I warned you, didn't I? I tried to warn you. Now it's time to pick up the pieces. It's time to fix what you've done wrong.
Hard to mask resentment left open so long.
It's time to do what you've put off for so long. It's time to fight, Edgar.
Mental voice pulling back, and he sounded like a child.
I don't want to be me. I don't want to be me anymore.
It's too late for that.
A voice familiar somehow. A memory cast aside and Edgar's fear quickly driven deep. Hidden. A shallow attempt at confidence, but at least it was an attempt. Scriabin sensed this, changed the tone of his voice.
Let's go outside.
Take this away from me.
Curled up in the corner of his room, small hands buried in short hair, voice not yet changed and a body before real awkwardness. Small and insignificant. Insignificant in the face of everything. 6 years old and gone.
Take this away from me. Please. Make it stop hurting.
Questioning noise. Rocking back and forth. Wishing for some kind of human contact. Something reassuring. Some kind of love from someone, somewhere. Even if it wasn't intangible, something.
Take this away from me. Take this away from me. Give me my life back. Give me back.
What life did you have?
Quiet and emotionless. Running even deeper.
Someone. Take this away from me.
Nails digging into the back of his neck.
Please take this away. Please, someone take this away from me. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Someone take this.
A noise from Scriabin he wasn't sure how to classify.
Please make this stop hurting. Make it stop. Make it different. Take my life and make it good again. Someone fix it. Someone fix everything, please.
A shaky gasp.
Scriabin. Scriabin, please.
He heard Scriabin take a deep breath.
Please help me. Please help me take this away from me. Fix it, please. I don't know how. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to make it better. I can't fix it. Please, someone take it and make it right. Please. Scriabin.
Deep weakness. Such deep weakness. And that counter voice that ran far below what either of them consciously heard. Something stronger and long-lived. Something much older than Scriabin could hope to be. Contempt for that weakness. Outright contempt. Ripped from the womb too early. Scriabin's metaphor perhaps had been too apt.
Scriabin, please.
Felt his muscles tightening again, but he had no more tears to shed. Not now. Not with that sense of shame, the self-loathing that came with admitting weakness. The words became desperate and honest, and in a voice Edgar thought he forgot and wanted to forget.
Scriabin, please. Please help me. Please help me. I can't do this. I can't do this alone. I can't do this by myself. I need help. I need you to fix it. I need you to take it away from me, please, oh God. Please take this away from me. Erase everything I've done. And I don't know what to do. Oh God, I've ruined everything. I've ruined everything.
Oh, Edgar.
Real affection. It sounded real. Familiar, too. Cynical side of him tried to match it. Found it matched the voice of old memories. A tone that was kept deep inside his life and his thoughts. His definition of emotion and affection, and of course that's what Scriabin would use for sincerity. Isn't it obvious? All words to try and build fear. To try and build distrust and fear, and it didn't work. At the sound of that affection, whether faked or not, Edgar reached out. He had been burned once. He had been betrayed in a way so painful he couldn't bear to think about it now. But he reached out anyway. As he saw it, he had no choice.
Take this away from me, Scriabin. Please. Scriabin.
Edgar.
Trying to find words.
Don't abandon me. Don't abandon me. I can't do this by myself.
That voice. The logic that he so often depended on. Running a diagnostic check on his words in the background and beeping and clicks not noticed. After all this time, he finally admitted it. Finally admitted he needed someone else. And now Scriabin would surely use this against him. That soft weight on his shoulders. The brush of air against his cheek. Closed his eyes and hoped, and he could feel Scriabin's arms settled around his neck, the touch of his fingers on his skin.
I won't leave you, Edgar.
Edgar wanted him to sound sincere so badly. So he did.
Not now. I won't abandon you.
Take this away from me.
I can't do that.
Felt Scriabin briefly nuzzle his neck. Or maybe the wind was playing with his coat. Reality was not welcome right now.
It'd be nice if I could. If I could go back and erase all the things that you've done. But I can't. I can only deal with the aftermath.
Edgar didn't care if guilt was relegated back to him, as long as the consequences...
Tell me what to do. Edgar.
A soft sigh, his fingers tracing along his neck. Felt his heart beat.
Edgar. That's what I do best.
A sigh of relief. Kind of.
Believe me, Edgar.
Arms curled around his neck, some kind of awkward embrace.
You don't need God. Now, you are God.
He didn't want to ask questions or for any kind of clarification. A deep and intense need within him, something lost through countless years through the processed lines of data, something lost through thoughts and gone. A plea repeated through his life and only answered through the one thing that gave his life meaning, through the prayers he held and the scapula he'd been given when he was young. Only answered once. He thought it was answered once and answered permanently that once, and then he was lied to. He had been lied to. That love was a lie, and it was gone and dead. And now that need rose again, desperate and raw, and it fought through the computer and through the blanket that suffocated all emotion and all pain.
Love me. Oh, Edgar.
A soft sigh.
You are so far gone now, it wouldn't even matter. Maybe one day when you're more aware, we can really discuss this. But you're not in your right mind and...
He wasn't sure what Scriabin intended to say. He simply trailed off. He wasn't there. He knew it. The arms around him weren't there and he couldn't feel him breathing. He just wished he could.
It's been long enough.
His voice was soft and gentle.
It's been long enough now. Regression is never a good idea. Not for such long periods of time. It's time to come back. To wake up.
I don't want to come back.
I know. But it's time for responsibility. Take a few deep breaths and come back to me.
He didn't want to. But the words he chose were perfect. Perhaps not his intent, but they were. To me. Someone to come back to. An order to obey. Someone to please and hopefully gain recognition in return. But mostly, just someone to come back to. Someone to come back to for any reason at all.